So, today we're going to chat a bit about the human experience. And while that does encompass everything we go through, so all of the thoughts we have, the emotions we feel, the ups and downs that we experience along the way, it's also about the deep questions we ask ourselves, our search for meaning, our search for purpose, right? The lessons that we learn along the way. How do we grow from them? How do we deal with people, the world? And so while we're all going through this, each of us will experience it in our own way. But that doesn't mean that we can't speak to it and learn from each other. So I thought it would be a nice topic for us to cover this week. So who wants to start us off?
I think that's a big question that everybody has. What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here?
Mm,
And I wish we knew all the answers. I don't think anybody will ever really know the answers, but I found a while back that I realized that there's more than just one purpose in life. Like, I feel like I grew up thinking there's going to be one thing, and that's what I'm here for, is this one thing. And then came to the opinion that every single moment of my life could be the purpose. I'm sitting here talking to you now. That could be a particular purpose, but maybe not the only purpose that I have. Maybe my purpose was to say hello to the cashier, at the checkout. Maybe that's a big purpose because it would mean something to her in her life. Maybe my purpose is to instigate thought for somebody else or actions for somebody else or to be an example. It's endless, the possibilities of why we're here. And I think it's important too to realize that we're given the gifts and the tools that we need to fulfill that purpose. So, for example, myself, there are a lot of things I love to do, but one of them is teaching. And for a long time, I taught children, and that fulfilled a great meaning for me, and that there was purpose in my life. And this is it right now. Then that has changed and it's morphed into, wait a minute, now my purpose is teaching people how to do mediumship and educating on spirituality. And that's very, very fulfilling too. But it's been a buildup all through my life. It wasn't what I started out doing or thinking that I was going to do. No way I thought I was going to do that. But it's just transitioned into that. And at this point, it feels very fulfilling. And when it doesn't, if it doesn't, I'll seek something else. I'm hoping that this is going to be the last thing that fulfills me. And I know through life, you've changed careers or you've changed your plan and you've changed what you think that you're going to be doing. Right now, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And I know that because it is a passion for me.
I think you just saying like the last thing you just said, you know that because you know it may change and you know whatever. The key, what I heard through that is that when you're in that purpose, you're there. You're like Anthony always says, you're present in that moment. You're allowing and you're accepting and I feel like that speaks to the human experience when you actually allow and accept and welcome the purpose that you feel at the time, that you feel passionate about, or that your body, soul, and spirit feels good in it and drawn to it, then that's enough purpose. And in that moment of saying hi to the cashier, that was the purpose. You know, it's
Mhm.
not for you to judge or guess. And I think it unfolds and it grows as you allow it to be more that way instead of writing out there's nothing wrong with writing out, in my opinion, writing out what you want your purpose to be or what you think it's going to be. But if you're in harmony with your spirit and your human and all of that, then you open up another doorway for something else to come in because, like you had said, you reflect that a lot of times you see that what you've done before, even though you were teaching young kids and now you're teaching adults, like you see all the different, even nuanced things that built you up to where you are now, and that it's an ever growing and evolving journey. I
Yeah.
also feel like that. Like there's many things I reflect on that I've done in my life and experienced in my life that really play into the now, and it makes me giggle when I see that because you wouldn't at the time, if I would have tried to plan it out as my purpose, it wouldn't have made any sense. Like, you know, you have frustrating times in life when you're like, why am I stuck in this job and doing this or whatever? And then you look at it after the fact, years down the road from a, what'd you say, Anthony, like a 10,000 foot lens down. And you're like, oh, it makes so much sense now, which shows that you're growing and learning and evolving into whatever that purpose is. But you're also like in the moment, that is your purpose. And I think people get really focused on the expectation of things need to be a certain way. And then they block maybe other doorways opening to lead them to something that feels more harmonious with your human and your spirit, you know?
You touched on like so many things, and it'll be hard for me now to keep track.
I am a squirrel. I'm a squirrel. Sorry. Rein it in, Tracy.
Like, I love that Carol is speaking about purpose and being open, right? Because the human experience is a journey. In other words, it's as long as you're alive, it's ongoing, and anything can change. I always say the only moment you have is this moment now, which is why I focus on the being present. No other reality exists other than this exact moment right now. And then I love that, Tracy, you're on about allowing stuff to happen. So in other words, allowing this moment to be no matter what. There's no expectations, there's no assumptions. To me, all of that encapsulates being present and being open, which I think is very good for the human experience. Because look at the opposites of them, not allowing and not being open. The only person that suffers from all of that is yourself.
Yeah.
And I spoke about it in the manifesting one as well. Remember with the surrender? That's just another word for the allow, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like there's beauty in the surrendering, in the allowing, because then the world is your oyster. Anything can happen. But it's when we try to control it too much, or we don't want something to happen or this to happen, that causes like pain and suffering for ourselves. But yet we self-inflicted because we're fighting the flow of the human experience.
Yep. We all do it too. So
Oh yeah, we all do it.
in some way or another.
And even in knowing it,
Yeah.
we still do it.
Yep. That's part of the human experience too.
You're reminding me of Macy Gray's song where she's talking about that. There's beauty in the world, right? She's like, you have to notice it though. You have to actively look for it. Pick your diamonds, pick your pearls, you know. I see the blue skies and the butterflies. We have an active part in whether we choose to live our purpose in a positive manner or a negative manner, whether we react to situations in a positive manner, a negative manner. We don't have to like all the situations that we're handed, but it's how we continue on after that that contributes to our spiritual nature growing.
Another thing I liked that you said that just popped into my head was the purpose being the moment when you said hi to the person in the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing about the human experience is love is at its core. And that's not just romantic love. That is love between friends, family, it's compassion, that's a form of love. So you saluting and saying hi, like it doesn't matter if it had no impact at all. It still comes from an essence of acknowledging the other person, which you could trace it back to love. And the love that most of us are the worst at is self-love.
Yeah.
A lot of us could do with a lot more self-love.
Mm-hmm.
So love and connection, I always say as well, is like core and central to the human experience. So there might be suffering, there might be pain, whatever it is, but at its essence, everything is coming from love.
The only time I ever came close to feeling that way was right after my son died. And then my heart was just so broken. Yet I wanted to love everybody so that nobody else would be broken and feel like that either. And so for a long time, it was just all I could do is to express myself that way of like, oh my gosh, I just love that person. I love this person. And just be open to everybody, no matter if they were my kind of person that I wanted to hang out with or not. And to also see that not everybody's going to go throughout the world about their life the same way that I would, and really understanding and appreciating differences in people and for what they've been through, because you don't know what somebody else has been through. You don't know their story. You don't know why they act like they do. If you are judging that maybe they're not the nicest person and that it would be a judgment. But I really went through for a long time with that kind of openness to and acceptance of everybody, because it was actually a really great connection that I felt with people when I felt like I was reaching them spirit to spirit. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Okay. It struck me as you were saying that about life and the human experience and not knowing what anybody's going through and the whole thing we were talking about finding a purpose. I work at a job now that my coworkers are like 18, and then the people I work with are like 80 plus, close to 100 years old. And it's a very contrasting example of the human experience. And it also speaks to love and connection. Because if you think about life at the age of 18, you are very more self-aware. It's all about what's going on with you, blah, blah, blah. And as you evolve and are on this earth, some people never grow out of that, but mostly you have experiences along the way that open up your heart to taking in others' experiences and learning from them. And the residents I work with, I mean, collectively, a lot of them are very lonely. And so when we're talking about love and connection, and a lot of them will say to me, like, I don't know why I'm still here. Like, what do I have to offer? And it's very sad, you know? And then we think about our mediumship experiences and what people come back to say, like people's loved ones. They don't talk about their job. Well, they might for evidence of them being here, but they mostly talk about their experiences with their people as part of their human experience. Like, those are the meaningful things. And so as I speak with these people that are in their 80s, 90s, and they're lonely and they talk about love and connection, I could see them light up when you talk about those experiences that they've had with their loved ones. And also like trying to figure out at this age that they're at now, like, why are they here in this human experience? And so what I've said to them, and I don't know, is that you may think that you're not here for a reason in this human experience, but what you teach others, like me, I can only speak for myself, but me included, like benefits you through our conversation and me. And, you know, the human experience is so complex and it has like, there is no time, right? But in the worldly sense, like when you're young, you have your parents taking care of you, and then you're 18 and you're doing whatever you want and whatever. And then you get to this age and like people maybe are afraid to talk to you because they're dealing with their own mortality. Like there's so many things, but it's just so interesting, the journey of the human experience. And maybe a lot of those people that are saying they're lonely and whatever, maybe don't understand that just being here in this moment, like we started with, is that experience, you know, is the human experience. And there's value to that. I don't even know if this is on the same vein of what we're talking about, but
Like an important factor of the human experience is learning to be present.
yeah.
And the whole point of that is you enjoy every moment, no matter
Mhm.
what. So if you get caught in the past too much, you're focusing on old experiences and you're missing out on the experience that is your
Yeah.
present moment. It's not that, we're not telling anyone, oh, you have to be present all the time. It's normal for the human mind to go into the future, go into the past. We learn from our experiences, we plan for the future. But at the moment, most people, myself included, we get so caught up in the future and the past that we're literally missing that only reality that we
Mhm.
have, which is the present moment. I also love, Tracy, that even the same as when Carl was saying hi to the lady in the shop, you speaking to them and showing compassion, and that again is another form of love, which of course is core to this whole human experience.
Yeah, and as much as this one particular resident, I had sent her healing. She was very ill, and she's one of my favorite residents. And I'm in a healing circle, and we sent her healing. And I really thought I was going to go back to work, and she would have passed. And then when I came back to work, she was looking so much better. And she doesn't speak very well because she's bedridden and all these things, and so she's very hard to understand because it's hard for her to speak. And I said, "Oh, I'm just so happy you're feeling better." She said, "I keep thinking I'm going to leave, but then I think of you and the girls, and I wanted to stay." And I almost started crying, but the point of the story is she found her meaning, her purpose in that moment to be there and to engage and be present in the moment. But that did just as much for me. So that speaks back to the love and
Hmm.
connection, you know, because there are days that I'm alone since I lost Joe or whatever, and I focus on that. My brain is real crappy to myself sometimes, like most people. And that meant just as much to me as it did for her, you know. as my purpose and her purpose, and then it circles back to love and connection, and then circles back into human experience, you know? So,
Because her purpose in that moment at the end of life stages and at her age is to help teach you and others the value of human connection, that human experience, and that feeling of love. And if all you have to give is love because you can't do anything else, that's still enough. It's enough that that's your purpose. And I think people don't realize that purposes don't have to be huge. They just can be love, but love in itself is the biggest thing.
Everyone will have their own path in the human experience, and no one can define your purpose for you. It doesn't have to even relate to a career. It could be a hobby. It could be as a parent, caring for a child. It could be a dog owner and looking after abandoned dog. Like it, I don't care what it is, but everyone will have their own purpose and they'll have something that gives them passion. And it's like when you look back at your full human experience, they're the things that you will hold most dear because they're the things that brought the love out in you. They're the things that got the fire going in your heart. Like that's my point that the lady now that Tracy's talking to, I hope that she has those experiences and that she can then reflect back on them and they'll bring up all these happy
Yeah.
emotions and stuff.
yeah, I mean, I just feel like she, in that moment, like it seems like such a silly little comment, but that fuels me for whatever my purpose was in that moment. But it'll also open doors to, for my purpose or whatever, for this journey of human experience to evolve, you know, into the next thing. Like Carol had said, like it's showing me, you know, I learned a lot through that. And I can't speak for her, but obviously she stayed around because she saw a purpose. And as much as she was feeling like she was too tired to be here anymore, she saw value in it and it wasn't her time to go, you know.
Do you know what I love about the story you just said? I always say the human experience is a paradox because you have
Yeah.
beauty and pain, you have
Yeah.
connection and isolation. You can experience one moment and the other one totally like opposite in the next moment.
Yeah.
Your story literally shows that in the sense that she will have a moment, say, why am I still here? And then suddenly in the next moment, she feels such a connection. So she went from isolation to connection, and
Yeah.
suddenly she wanted to stick around. So that's what I'm saying. Life is a paradox in the sense that you're always going to have the opposites. It's just how you experience them and how you
Yeah.
react to them is, let's say, how the entire life experience then is going to play out.
You do have the choice to take things that are sad and negative in a good way, and you have the choice to dwell in it, right? And you can't judge yourself for either one of those things you do. Maybe next week you'll be dwelling on something you took in a different way. Like life is ever evolving and it can get messy, but it's like you said, the paradox of all of the things. It's is part of the journey, and being here in that moment and being present was that purpose, the human experience.
I find it interesting that you guys are talking about the connections with people because that dual balance there is some people would choose to be alone, and I don't want so many human interactions, and I don't want people around me so much. And then other people are going to be like, I want lots of connection. We look at it from different perspectives, and I see the person who wants to only be alone. Why would you want that? I love being around people. Whereas the loner person would be like, oh, I can't stand it. That's too much energy for me to be around or whatever. And we kind of see each other's positive as each other's as a negative for ourselves, which is interesting.
But the positive in that is that you both are self-aware enough to know yourself.
Why is that a positive?
Look how many people have no self-awareness. You need a certain level of self-awareness, let's say, to be able to look and have these different narratives when certain experiences happen that might make you sad or angry or whatever the emotion is.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you can control in this world is yourself
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and how you react to events and experiences. You're very much in the driving seat here. And when the flow of life kind of presents different things to you, it's your reaction to that will determine, how things might play out. But you also have immense control over your reaction to that. And like I have to say, because obviously enough in the coach and I help people all the time, but people learn this skill. I had to learn this skill. I wasn't born with it. That's why the human experience is an ongoing journey. So something could happen and then you might say, okay, I didn't handle that very well. That's really good, by the way, if you could do that, because then you have a certain level of self-awareness, right? And that's the first step. Then you can go deeper and say, what triggered me in that way? How
Yeah.
can I move forward if that happens again? And the
hmm
universe, by the way, is on your side.
Some people like to spend time on their own. I like to spend time on my own, but not all like I like people too. So depends on my mood. But some people like to be alone because they maybe don't want to feel or they don't want to unearth some wounds that make them grow on their journey. So they isolate.
Hmm.
So when you speak of asking the universe to send you self-confidence, what the universe then does, in my experience, is send you something that I need to work through. Well, why aren't you confident, Tracy? Let me unfold that for you. And when you have a survival, maybe through trauma or whatever, of handling things a certain way, it can be more comfortable to be like, no, I just don't like people, or I just don't want to be on the stage, or whatever it is, for self-confident. Like, I just like to let other people shine, to be like, is that though what you're supposed to be doing? And why do you feel that way? Is it because you were marginalized as a young one and you had to always be quiet, but your soul is screaming to be loud and be on stage or be like seen or heard? So you do have a choice, but then often people like to stay in their own narrative so that they don't have to unearth the pain to figure out why they're not confident.
It's uncomfortable to
Yes,
step out of your comfort zone,
Hmm.
exactly.
but the only place growth will happen is outside your comfort zone.
Mhm.
And that's why I love coaching, because, and that's why people come. They want someone to hold them to account because they know that if they step out of their comfort zone, they'll come up with a reason, like Tracy said there, an excuse to why they should retreat,
Yep.
why they should go back to the comfort zone. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then sometimes we need help.
It also brings you back to love and connection. Like sometimes when you are uncomfortable and you have somebody like a coach or a friend to kind of be your cheerleader or your
Hmm.
support, then it puts a warm hug around that uncomfortableness so that it helps you.
I was just thinking as you guys were talking about that, being uncomfortable with situations. And I feel like that's why we live in a world that has a lot of uncomfortable situations because they can be very personal, but they can also be very global, let's say, or just multiple people can experience the same discomfort. And I often wonder about that. Is are those kinds of things sent to us so that we all grow together, that we all find that place of love together where we can unite and face that discomfort in a way that we have a support and we have other cheerleaders there who are right there with us navigating that discomfort. What do you think?
Yeah, like Carol, when you are asking about you're asking about like globally, like the energy is different. We all know energy is like everywhere. You can feel it in a room, whatever. And there is a collective energy. There is a lot more intensity in the energy, right? That maybe are nudging people out of their uncomfortableness or to have a choice. I do feel like that, but that's just my astrology brain seeing the energies playing out. I still think people have choices and everybody's journey and perception of their own journey is individual. Just like Anthony said, he read something on your weather and they had these winds, and you're like, well, I don't even read the news, so you didn't even realize it. Whereas I'm like hyper focused on the weather since I moved to a state that has severe weather and I came from a state that had no weather issues. Like my focus was there. So in my reality, this, that, and the other was happening, and I have it all dialed in, whatever. And Carol's like, I didn't even know. So it's where your attention is in your own journey, right? But with that being said, collectively, you know, the world is changing and it always is. I do feel like there's a bigger energies at play right now. In my spiritual thoughts, I feel like in my human experience, I feel like it's to kind of give people a nudge to open them up or give them opportunities to participate in their own experiences, to evolve on their own journeys, which then it, collectively helps everybody. That's kind of how I see it.
To me, life from the moment you're born until you die, it's all self-development. And the universe, God, whoever, source, uses everybody else in the universe to almost.
Mhm.
So think of that. Every single soul here is here to help each other on this human experience. And
Yeah.
where does all of it come from then
Mhm.
but a place of love? So even though there's so much hatred and fighting, that's very much ego-based, whereas it hasn't come from spirit.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, I do think that's the purpose as well. And people always look for, why is this happening? Why is the universe letting this happen? Why is this situation going on? But to Anthony's point, humans have caused that. Spirit hasn't caused that. Humans have caused the destruction or the division or whatever it is that's going on. And so that's the lesson for the rest of us. Maybe that's a purpose for us too, to experience that and learn how to get back to our true selves, our true spirit, which is out of love and which is about connecting with each other, which is about all of us being one and whole together and not divided. But perhaps first we have to see that division come into play in order to understand this is not the natural state of things. This is why it's so uncomfortable. We're given those uncomfortable moments, like we were talking about earlier, in a bigger way, not just our day to day lives. It's the bigger picture. So we get little bits of discomfort, but we get big picture discomfort too, if that makes sense.
I feel like if we can learn to understand that even though there is global discomfort, that it doesn't need to be looked at as uncomfortable. It's just the part of the story where, all the messy stuff happens, if you will. And if we can learn individually to stay in our own personal knowing inside ourselves, if everybody could do that, right, things would get happier.
You shouldn't be judging the world, any other soul, how it's living, blah, blah, blah. And Tracy's right in what she was saying there. Deep down, I feel that the way to help the world is we have to work on ourselves. Because if we work on ourselves, like individually, the collective consciousness then of humanity as a whole changes completely. But the problem, of course, is what we all project out and we want to fix the world,
Yeah.
whereas the answer is we need to fix ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about earlier when I was having that state of kind of being so full of love for people. It was that state of non-judgment. That's exactly what it was. It's not easy to stay there, but it's my particular event that at least helped me get to that somewhat. And I do appreciate that because now I know what it looks like. And now I know how I need to continue to self-develop to get back to that.
Yeah, it's like a little like nudge, like, okay, like Anthony would say as a coach, that you're aware of it. It's the first step. So, now you're like asking yourself, well, why am I not being as patient or whatever? What is it going on with me or something I've experienced in the past that is leading me to back to that place and then being self-aware and then evolving through that.
Yes, because you better figure that out
Yeah,
about your
right.
patient because you don't want to ask for patience. You don't want to get those tests in those situations that will help you get patience.
Oh yeah, it looks like a year on the farm with no human connection. That's what asking for patience looks like when you used to talk to 5 million people 10 million times a day. So, yeah, I'm grateful though. I am. It's always like after the fact. Sometimes it's in the fact. Like I'm self-aware enough to be like, I know I need this and this is showing me something. Please show me what this is meaning. But I'm also like, it's really good if you could take the time in your own individual journey to reflect on how far you've come, what you've learned from those things, how you've grown. That's a big piece of the human experience too, acknowledging that and finding gratitude in it and allowing more.
So could we sum up our conversation by saying we need to recognize our dual nature, right? In the sense that we're spirit and we come from spirit, but we're having this human experience. And there's different parts to that experience, and no two people have the exact same experience, right? Just like we said earlier on, everyone's reality is in their own head. But what we can do is support each other on it.
Yeah.
And also that we love you.
Hugs and kisses.
Love and connection to the collective consciousness, and everybody work on yourselves, continue to, and don't feel bad about it, and don't talk to yourself bad about it. And if you do, just get back on the wagon and be aware and be in the moment.
Couldn't have said it better, Tracy.
I'm here all week. I'm just kidding.
All right, Slán.
Bye. See ya.